Mr. Ehrlich, directly to the Chancellor, Gordon Brown just said this is a new world order that is emerging. Would you call it the same and perhaps a little less lofty to the finance minister? What does this cost? I mean, what sort of burden will this be to the Bundesbank and to the federal budget? Well, I would say that in an area where there was not sufficient global regulation and global order, we have made a step in the right direction towards order, and the fact that we have insisted on placing a certain order into this system, that multilateral organizations were strengthened, and that we also agreed on laying down a charter for principles to guide this kind of market. I think all of that shows that indeed Gordon Brown is right in qualifying the results of this summit in this way. The G20, after all, were not the only ones who were present, but also representatives of the international organizations, and they gave a very valuable contribution to the overall discussion. It was also very clear, for example, that the IMF in future will tell us, will make predictions about the development of growth, but will also tell us whether the individual intentions have been actually put into reality. So they are part of the process. It's not just countries, it's also giving the international organizations a higher profile. Actually, it's not the federal government that sits on the board, if you like, of the IMF, but the Bundesbank. And in order to finance that, we have certain currency reserves that are, if you like, the surety and the guarantee and the liability that will allow the IMF to enhance its activities. Whether we will be able to raise their stocks for multilateral development aid, I don't know. I would have to look this up, but the Bundesbank will give support to the IMF through its currency reserve, so that will not be a burden on the federal budget.
Was wollten Sie? Lassen Sie Herrn Ehrlich noch einmal seine Zusatzfrage stellen.
You wanted an additional question. Well, this question on trade, it was said that the Germans are giving a big contribution through Hermes guarantees. Well, we're doing that through Hermes guarantees, actually to the tune of 48 billion euro. I think that's $60 billion. I think Mr. Usman needs to correct me. I think these are the right figures. And that stretched out of a period of 2 years. And the whole volume is 250 billion. But so we have no problem with that, but we're benefiting actually from others doing the same. On tax havens, how were you able to break the resistance of the United Kingdom against a quick publication of the list? And that seemed to have been there in place until this afternoon. Now, you lauded this format for international cooperation. Is this something that only works in such a crisis, or can you actually institutionalize that? Can you place it on a regular footing and it works all the time, or how do you see that? I am actually not aware of the United Kingdom having a particular sort of negative attitude towards this list. As hosts, they are, after all, placed under the obligation to give adequate recognition of reservations of others around the table. It was possible to convince each and everyone, without wishing to go into further detail, with the British assistance, that to make it possible that such a list was possible. And the American president also put his hand into this, and we agreed to have a follow-up summit in the autumn. It's not quite clear yet whether on the margins of the General Assembly of the United Nations or later in the autumn. That is still under discussion. We will then discuss the Charter, as I said. We will also then wait and see how far we've come, and whether this will then be the format that has stood the test of time and that is good for this crisis, or whether we return to the Heiligendamm process, the G8+5. That's something that we need to agree on in La Maddalena when the Italians host us for the G8 summit meeting. I do think that we can actually say that it was also due to the very clear stance of Germany, but also others, that this issue of tax havens is reflected in quite this way in the text of the communiqué. Not only the French president, but also others have said it's very bad for us to return home if we cannot tell our citizens what we've done in concrete terms against tax fraud and tax evasion. And maybe I ought to read this to you because it's quite impressive. To take action to identify non-cooperative jurisdictions, including tax havens, and stand ready to deploy sanctions to protect our public finances and financial systems. The era of banking secrecy is over. That's quite remarkable, and we've actually exerted some pressure. And we also then say that we note that the OECD later in the day publishes this list.